would you agree that OBJ is the biggest star in this Super Bowl?
Yeah, when you look outside, Skip, we're not just talking about the game. I think if you take this, and this is the biggest game in North America. So when you think about the eyeballs that's going to be watching this game, when you factor in Asia, you factor in Africa, you factor in Europe, OBJ is the most recognizable name in this game. Now, is he the biggest star in the game as far as, like, if you just say the U.S.? No, I'm not going to, no, I don't believe so. But when you talk about world appeal, he has 15 million followers. No other NFL player has 15, maybe Tom Brady.
No,
but I think
he's number one.
Yeah.
Number one.
So,
Odell's number one.
So when you factor that in, Skip.
And you got to throw in the Twitter, it's not that much, but it's 4 million.
Right. So you look at almost 20 million followers worldwide.
Correct.
No other player has that kind of appeal.
No.
Skip, remember, he got a $5 million Nike deal for a wide receiver, not a quarterback. They normally reserve those for quarterbacks.
Yep.
He got that as a wide receiver. So it just goes to show you the appeal that he has and his reach that he has. So for me, Skip, yeah, I don't really think it's close. You look at the people from a LeBron, being with LeBron or hanging with a Drake or hanging with a lot of the entertainers that he's able to hang with outside of the game of football. I don't think any other player, with the exception of probably Brady, but Brady isn't in this game.
Not.
So when you look at OBJ and you look at the Bengals and you look at his teammates, yeah, it's not even close, Skip. Nobody has the reach in this game that OBJ has. No one has the reach that he has. So for me, and this is also another opportunity, Skip, for him to silence a lot of the critics that said OBJ is no longer OBJ. He can't do what he's done. Skip, if you look at what he's done in the regular season since he's got to the Rams, he went from like 3.5 catches a game, 38 yards, to all of a sudden he's up to 6, almost 7 catches for 80 yards. So they've increased his opportunities, and he's made the most of that situation. But for me, Skip, I don't really think it's close. When you look at Q rating, when you look at, you factor in the countries around the world that's going to be watching this game, I guarantee you more people will know, oh, that's Odell Beckham, than any other player. Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Stafford, Burrow, Chase, none of them has the appeal that OBJ has.
Okay. Do you realize what an astounding statement you just made? So let me quickly run you back through my history of covering Super Bowl, shall we?
Yes.
I started with Super Bowl 10 in Miami. I was working at the Miami Herald, featuring Roger Staubach versus Terry Bradshaw and the Steelers. And the two biggest stars in the game were obviously Roger Staubach and Terry Bradshaw, who's still a huge star, getting bigger by the day. And then we start to go into the Montana realm. And it seemed like every year Joe Montana was going back to another Super Bowl and winning another Super Bowl and MVP, although Jerry Rice won the one against Cincinnati. And then we go to this guy named Elway. You might remember John Elway, right?
Yes.
And he was dominating a period where he just kept going to Super Bowl after Super Bowl, and he would be the biggest star in the game no matter who he's playing against, because could he get over the top, over the hump? And finally, with Shannon Sharpe as his primary receiver, here they went with Terrell Davis running the football. All of a sudden, John broke through and won a couple of Super Bowls. But it just seemed like every year it had some. He was the featured piece of the Super Bowl, right?
Skip, it's always, with the exception of maybe the 2000 Ravens, it's always been about the quarterback.
Brett Favre had a little run. Then my man Troy Aikman and Emmett and Michael had a run through the 90s. And then all of a sudden it was all about Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. And he was going to be the star of stars in every one of his Super Bowls, right?
Manning.
And you could argue, there's some Mannings, there are two Mannings going on.
But in the Super Bowl, we're talking about just that game. It's always been about the quarterback.
Always, all the way down to last year when we finally got Patrick Mahomes versus Thomas Edward. Here we go, right?
Yes.
And we had cavalcade of stars in that game, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, you just told me something that I completely co-sign. That by far the biggest star in this game, and I love this guy, I'm intrigued, I'm on the edge of my seat for this game, but by far the biggest star is a receiver, and let me get this straight. Let me just double-check my notes here. He made the Pro Bowl in his first 3 years in the league as a New York Football Giant. He was the toast of New York for those 3 years. He has not made a Pro Bowl for the last 6 years. Look, so you just told me that a receiver who hasn't made a Pro Bowl for 6 years is going to be by far the biggest star in this game. And I say, why? How? Well, it has to do with the media age we're in. It's called social media, and it's about followers. It's about
name recognition.
Name recognition. And what happened in New York? How did he arrive? What happened on a Sunday night back in 2014 against my Dallas Cowboys? A game that, by the way, the Giants wound up losing 31-28. What happened in that game? This happened. Eli Manning throws it as far as he can, and Brandon Yu's car couldn't get there, and Odell one-handed it. And I believe it was Chris Collinsworth who said, that's the greatest catch I've ever seen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is it? Yeah, it's up there. We've seen a couple since then that might rival it, but given the stage against my Cowboys in New York on Sunday night football, you can't get all that much bigger. Maybe Monday night would be slightly bigger, but did he not seize the moment?
Yeah, that was his first game, Skip. That was his first game in the NFL.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, and it was just bombshells went off, right?
Yes.
All over. We were talking about that catch for weeks to come. And then, as the Giants became a pretty good team, better than they were at that point, all of a sudden, Odell became the biggest soap opera in New York. And there are a lot of soap operas that are filmed in New York, right? And he became the biggest soap opera star in New York because what kept happening between plays, after plays, on the sideline with all of his antics. He would get into it with Josh Norman. There was that one classic game against Carolina. And I don't know what buttons Josh was pushing, but he pushed every one of Odell's buttons. And Odell went ballistic. He lost it. He lost his poise. He lost his mind in that game. Remember, after plays, he was getting a running start and going after Josh. And then we had the kicking net incidents where he's hitting it and then he's making up to it and proposing to it. It was just one thing after another. Was he not the biggest soap opera star? And then it was, is he happy in New York? Does he want out of New York? And then all of a sudden they do finally make the playoffs. And he takes his group of receivers to get ready for a playoff game up on the frozen tundra at Green Bay. He takes them to South Beach, and we see him on Trey Songz's yacht getting ready, basking in the Miami Beach sun to get ready for a game up on the frozen tundra. And Odell stunk in that game because he dropped an early third down pass, then he dropped one in the back of the end zone. And that was his first playoff game, and he left his mark in Lambeau Field by taking his helmet in the tunnel, walking to the locker room and just smashing a big hole in the wall. And the New York media just fixated on that hole in the wall because that became the story. And from there, New York finally just gave up on him and shipped him to Cleveland. I don't think Odell was ever happy there, but it was always Baker's fault, what's happening. But very quietly, what slipped under the radar, Odell had 3 surgeries in 4 years in Cleveland. 3 in 4 years. It's horrible. He's now 29, but I don't see quite the electric sort of burst and quickness and speed that we saw early in his career, right?
I think he still has it, Skip. I think the opportunities weren't there. He's finally getting healthy. You're right. The last 3 or 4 years, when you start having hernia surgery, you had knee surgery. You have
an ACL.
ACL,
What's Brady say? That's a forever injury, right?
So he's had some surgeries that would impact that. But I think since being over a year removed from his last surgery, he's starting to look like an OBJ. Now, is he all the way back to the first 3 years OBJ? I don't think he's quite there yet. But another year, he's going to be just fine. And Skip, you're right. In New York, a lot of the negativity, Odell brought it on himself. The Cleveland situation, he didn't bring that on himself. They were looking for someone to blame why Baker hadn't taken that next step, because we saw a lot of guys skip in the second year. We saw Lamar Jackson. We saw a lot of the guys that came along, to Josh Allen. We saw them take that next step. Well, why isn't Baker taking that next step? Well, it's Odell. That's why. So now, all of a sudden, he's been removed.
By the way, I thought Baker did take the next step down the stretch of a year ago without Odell, but we can go back and forth on that all day. The truth is, that's a sad sack franchise. They got problems, and they still got problems.
They still do.
Okay? So whatever. Odell finally found Valhalla to me because he just flat out got cut. They just said, you go choose where you want to go. And it was, might he go to Green Bay? Might he go home to New Orleans? Nope, he's going to the Rams. And now that I look at it, it was by far the smartest move.
Yes.
Like it wasn't even close to what could have gone on in New Orleans or in Green Bay because he already had a home in Beverly Hills. He belongs in L.A. He was actually born to be in L.A.
Right.
And then the beauty was, I don't know, he thought he was going to be like the fourth receiver up to Robert Woods and Van Jefferson. Then the day after he signs, Robert Woods goes down, and all of a sudden, OBJ, wait, he's got a chance to shine now. But he gets to do it in the shadow of the most productive receiver we've seen in a long time.
Well, for a season, he's the most productive receiver in NFL history. For a season, yeah. The history, not just the history, the 101, 102-year history of the NFL Cooper Cup season this year is by far the best.
And I'm not sure how Cooper Cup does it, but he definitely does it. And yet, as we've marched through the playoffs, we had two players who had checkered playoff pass, and Matt Stafford was 0-3, and Odell was 0-1 because of that debacle at Lambeau. And all of a sudden, those two are riding the magic carpet of career turnaround all of a sudden because Stafford's heated up, and along the way, he's taken Odell with him, and Cooper Kupp, obviously, is still Cooper Kupp.
Yes.
Okay.
Skip, in games like this, Skip, Matthew Stafford has kind of changed the narrative of him. He couldn't win the big games, especially the playoffs, because he was over in the playoffs. Now you see what he did in Tampa. He goes down to Tampa. Yeah, they're playing really, really well. They tie the ball game up. He made two of the best throws of his career. Now, I'm not so sure how hard they were, but given the circumstances, 27-27, we've seen guys miss routine throws. They were routine, but we've seen guys miss some routine throws. He makes that. And then they're down 17-7 going into the fourth quarter at home. And he makes throw after throw.
He did.
Now, Tart let him off the hook. He dropped one. But sometimes, Skip, you got to get a little lucky.
You do.
And overcome that and make the plays. OBJ, you mentioned Lambeau Field. He's 0-1. Man, OBJ, he's not that guy. He can't. Now, he's not the number one receiver, but I think Odell has proved why they gave up what they gave up to go. Well, they didn't have to give up anything. They just had to sign him.
Yep.
And I think he's proven that, Skip. I believe he's proven that.
Okay. So why is Odell so huge on Instagram? Not so much on Twitter, but on Instagram.
Yeah.
He just has a knack for posting the right thing at the right time. And they're mostly highlights. They're stunning highlights. A lot of them come in pregame catches because nobody puts on a better pregame show than Odell, right? I'm talking about circus catches. They're one hand, they're behind the back, they're between the legs. Nobody can do that better than Odell. But that hasn't actually translated into, except for his rookie year. His rookie year, he led the league with 109 yards a game. Okay, that'll work. And then it began to fade down. The first 3 years were pretty good, but then the Cleveland years were all just, it went down.
That first year. The first year was okay.
88 a game, not bad, but then 65, then down to 46, and he ended at 38 a game. Okay. So the point is that it's about posting videos, but it's not really about your personality because the Odell I know a lot of people who know him very well, they find him mostly introverted off the field. That when he calls you or called Chris Carter in the past, he's very deferential. He will defer. He wants your advice. He doesn't want to tell you how great he is. He wants you to tell him how to be great, right? And because of that, because he doesn't have a huge personality, he doesn't get many I don't know any commercials that he's done. Do you know one that pops up?
I think I saw something. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Okay, see, that's the point. Where I was trying to think of one this morning. I don't know him as a big commercial maker.
Skip, I think the thing is that he's interesting. What other football player is on stage with Drake? What other player is in Paris at Fashion Week? Okay,
but he also had the incident in Paris, the video where he's with the model in the hotel room, and it looked like there was some
people like train wrecks. Remember? They'll stop. A lot of time there's a wreck on one side, but the traffic is clogged on the other side because everybody's watching. Move on out the way. You're not getting out the car and helping them keep it moving.
Agreed.
So people like looking at things like that, Skip.
Agreed.
But for Odell, he's interesting, and people like, man, I wonder what. You see him doing the challenges. He's jumping out of his roles. He's doing the challenge. He gets 7, 8, 9 million views. So people like things of that. So he's carved out a nice little nick, Skip. We look on IG and we look, who is this? How you got 70 million followers? Who are you? What do you do? Or somebody just playing video games and people watching 8 and 10 million people watch. I'm like, how? But Odell is carved out of Nick as a non-quarterback, Skip. That's what's so amazing about this. If a quarterback was like Odell, we wouldn't even give it a passing thought. But Odell is a wide receiver.
Right.
And he has this kind of acclaim. He has this kind of brand, this kind of face recognition in a sport that's all about the quarterback. They made a few rules, okay, you can't hit the defensive receiver, but everything is predicated on taking care of the golden guys, Skip. And since Super Bowl, it goes back to Bart starting the first Super Bowl, Lynn Dawson all the way through, like I said, with the exception of the 2000 Ravens or the 02 Bucks, it's always been about the quarterback. It was Montana Elway, it was Aikman and this guy, it was Bradshaw and Staubach. It doesn't matter. It's always a bit. Joe Namath and Johnny U, it didn't matter. It's a quarterback's league. So it's always been about that guy until Odell. How did Odell usurp the quarterback?
And it's almost like he's got the magic touch for being at the right place at the right time, where he won't say anything this week that will set people off. It's not the way he speaks. It's what he does. It's the challenges. It's the dances. It's the hairstyle. It's LeBron saying hashtag free Odell from Cleveland. LeBron is turning on his Cleveland Browns because he's an Odell fan. It took that. Right? And go ahead.
And Skip, we remember when they played, I don't know if Brady was still in New England, and Odell gifted him some goat cleats. You know what I'm saying? And then Baker happened to be on the field, and Baker looking at him side eye like, hold on, you just gave this man some cleats. So, and players around the league, he's universally beloved, Skip. They love Odell.
They do. Because at heart, to me, from what I know of him, he's a good guy.
He is.
His heart is good.
He is.
I always almost too simplistically divide the world up into you got a good heart or a bad heart. He's got a good heart. And yet, on the field in productivity, he's not Cooper Kupp. He should be, given his adulation and idolatry, he should be the go-to receiver here, but he's not. And he has benefited greatly because he's in a sweet spot because you say he gets a little double. I haven't seen double, but whatever. He's going to draw a lot of single coverage because they're going to put 3 guys on Cooper Kupp because nobody has figured out how to control Cooper Kupp. He can run after catch. He's got that start-stop, that stutter step. It's just hard to cover him.
Make tough contested catches, high point the ball.
And Matthew Stafford just absolutely loves Cooper Kupp because he trusts him because he's going to throw it because that guy's going to go get it. And when he had the drop the other day, but in general, he's just going to catch everything that you throw to him. And again, in general, Cooper Kupp's going to break the game wide open, and Odell's going to be a luxury. But you want to talk about Odell in a good spot here?
He's in a great spot, Skip. It reminds me of John Taylor and Jerry Rice.
It does. That's a good one.
You know, Jerry, if you remember, Skip, Jerry won the MVP, had over 200 yards. It was JT that caught 200 jet X slant for the game-winning touchdown.
And by the way, those were the days when my biggest pet peeve was, and I was at that game in the front row of the press box, they came and took your MVP votes with like 2 minutes left. And Jerry had racked up.
He had over 200 yards.
Over 200 yards. Well, obviously, you say, okay, but the game had not really even started yet because Joe Montana was going to hit, of all people, John Taylor with the game-winning pass. I thought Joe should have been 4 for 4 in MVPs because he did throw a game.
Because that was a 92-yard drive,
It was spectacular.
And guess what happened, Skip? Remember, I think it was Lewis Billups dropped the touchdown that would have sealed the game.
Would have sealed the game.
Joe continues on down the field.
Joe marches on.
We know what happened.
And we know what happened, but Joe should have been the MVP. But the point, you're exactly right. John Taylor was actually in the Odell spot. Opposite Jerry Rice? So maybe Odell's in position A to catch the game winner this time.
And we see that, Skip. Remember Michael Irvin. Alvin Harper caught the big play in the NFC Championship game.
I was in the middle of that one.
It was huge. You get that, and I think Odell is all of a sudden he understands that he's become very comfortable in who he is and what he is. And I think a lot of times early on in his career, everything was trying to please and trying to show. Now he's like, you know what? I'm healthy now. I'm going to show you. I'm not going to talk about all this and all this other things. I'm going to show you that I'm still an elite receiver. And Skip, everything they've thrown in his direction, he's made plays. And I don't believe they're here. I don't believe they win the NFC Championship game because he had 9 catches for 113. 6 of them went for first downs.
Okay. From what I saw of Robert Woods when he was healthy,
Yeah.
I think he was playing at a little higher level than Odell is right now. So could I make a case they'd be a little better with Robert Woods and Odell?
Oh, yeah, of course. But here's the thing, Skip. For Odell to come into this system, pick it up in the middle of the season, play, and this system is really all about in between the numbers. Odell makes a lot of his catches outside of the numbers. That's what he is. Skip, he still has great lateral quickness, maybe not what it once was. He can still high point the ball. He's still technically sound in the route running tree, and he still can run after the catch. So Sean McVay had to come up with how can I use this guy when he's really not what we normally are accustomed to having, a guy that works mainly between the numbers. But they get him inside the numbers. They start him outside. They run him on some over routes. They run him in some end cuts. So he's done a great job of carving out a niche for himself, but Sean McVay has done a great job of putting him in position. And also Matthew Stafford said, you know what? I remember this guy. Let me see if he still got a little juice. Here, take this, Odell. Here, take that. I'm going to find Cooper Kupp now. Hey, Coop, just hold on. I'm going to come see you in a few minutes. But let's get Odell going.
Congratulations, Odell. You are the star of stars in Hollywood.
Just considering the last couple months Odell has had, it's impressive that he's gotten to this point. And yeah, all eyes are on Odell. Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.